Hello everybody, thank you so much for attending the webinar today. We're going to get started now, I think. It's about 10 o'clock by my watch, so thank you so much for being prompt and for coming along. And it's a pleasure to have some people I know who are online for the very first time doing a live webinar, so that's fantastic. My name is Ruth Knight. I'm from the Pillars of Best Practice, which is a free coaching program for non-profits. This is a program that offers you free membership resources and webinars, so please make sure that you become a member and check out all of the resources that are available to you there. I'm also Director of Zart Consultancy, and so that's what I do. And I'm going to be hosting your webinar today, and we're going to be talking about eight things that exceptional non-profit boards do really well. Now, I just wanted to let you know that you're free to, hang on, I'm just going to go back a bit. Okay, you're free to participate in today's webinar. So I would just like you to know that there's a panel on the side of your screen there that you can put in questions. You're all muted, but you can type in questions or comments at any time, and please feel free to do that. And you can put in questions as we go through the webinar, but I might sort of save the questions till the end and see if we have time to do questions at the end. So please feel free to type in the questions or anything. I might ask you a few questions as we go along as well. All right, so what are we going to do today? We are going to talk about some responsibilities of not-for-profit boards, but we're really going to be talking about things that are going to make you an exceptional board rather than just a good board. And I hope that you will see that some of these things are really vital if you want to succeed in today's environment, not-for-profit environment, which is very volatile sometimes. Our funding isn't secure. There's lots of changes going on in the not-for-profit sector at the moment. And so if you want to survive as an organisation, then we really need to be exceptional at what we do. So what if your organisation was a boat? What kind of boat would your organisation be? Or what kind of captain would you need in your boat? Who would you like as part of your crew? Where are you going? What type of mission do you have? What kind of cargo do you have? And how important is it that you get to your destination? Just think for a moment about how important it is that you sail your boat safely and swiftly to your destination. What kind of a boat would you be? And it doesn't really matter what type of boat you are. In fact, all of you on this webinar might be different types of boats. It might be that you're just a very small non-profit with volunteers that have just started out, or you might be part of a very large organisation that has lots of different services and programs and departments, and you've been going a long time. So it doesn't really matter what type of boat you are or what type of organisation you are, governance is still critically important for all of you. So imagine that you didn't have the resources and the crew that you needed. What if you didn't have the fuel, for instance, to get you to where you wanted to be? Or what if you didn't know the direction in which your boat was going, or where, the next port had to be? How would that be? How would that feel for you? I wonder if you could just put in your comment box now how you think it would feel for you as a captain of a boat to not have the critical resources and information that you needed to steer your boat. Can you write that in for me? I'm just going to see if I can see some of your answers there. So yeah, would it feel frustrating, confusing, if you didn't have the critical capital that you needed to power your organisation towards success. Yeah, that's great. So good governance then, if you do a search on what good governance is, it's all about being accountable, transparent, compliant. You'll see some of these words on any of the really good websites or good institutions that talk about good governance. And these are the things that you should be doing no matter the size of your organisation, the age of your organisation, the programs that you're doing or the mission that you're doing. These are the transparent principles that you should be doing. And hopefully your board knows what these mean. Hopefully your board is already understanding that these are the things that help them to be a good organisation. And, feel free to go off and research some of these things. There's some great websites and information out there. But what would, the point I'm making is that if you don't have an understanding of what good governance is and the basics, when the weather changes, when storms hit your organisations or crisis happens within your organisation, if you don't have good governance, then you're not going to be able to weather the storm. But I want to talk today really about more than just the basics, because again, if you can't weather this storm, your organisation will not survive. So today I want to talk about things that exceptional non-profit boards do really well. These 8 keys that I want to discuss with you are really going beyond the basics so that you can achieve incredible success, whatever the weather, whatever the environment that the sector is in, because I want to make sure that you avoid the frustration and the crisis that can occur, even whatever the weather, whatever's going on in your organisation. Now, some of these things that I'm just going to talk with you this morning come from a little book called The Source. It's available from boardsource.org. It's a great little book that I love. In fact, all of my clients, I usually tell them to make this part of their induction kit for new board members. It's had a lot of research put into it, and it's a lovely little book that every board member should read. So some of the things that I'm going to talk about is from this little book. And the other one is the book by Jim Collins called Good to Great and the Social Sectors. Some of you may have read this. Again, another little book which you can make as part of your induction kit for your board members. Fantastic little book by Jim Collins. And so some of the key points that I'm going to make today come from here as well. And I encourage you to go and read both of those books. So what's our number one thing then? Okay. So things exceptional not-for-profit boards do really well is that they are mission-driven. And I'm sure you're saying, well, of course we're mission-driven. You know, we have a mission. We're a not-for-profit. Of course we do that. But unfortunately, a lot of people are not mission-driven. And by that, I mean that they don't use their mission as the steering wheel or the anchor for their organisation. It's not just a non-profit thing. I mean, every business, every organisation should have a mission, a purpose for its existence. And using that clear, common person sense of direction to guide everything that it does. So all of your decision making should come back to, is it helping us get to where we need to go? Is it going to be helpful to the future of our organisation? And that's what I mean by being mission-driven. Mission-driven organisations, they inspire people with a credible and persuasive vision. So it's not something that they don't tell anyone about where they're going. I mean, can you imagine the captain of a boat not telling its crew where the next port is or where it's going? No, they make a big communication about that. They tell everybody constantly, we're heading in this direction, we need to go in this direction. but they're also really flexible so that they can meet the changing needs of the community or the group, the clients that they work with and the staff. So, you know, if the weather changes or circumstances changes or funding changes, they can be flexible and meet those needs. So as I said, they use their mission and values to guide their decision making. They make sure that the mission is at the forefront of everything they do. And they have strategic and operational plans that are future focused. It's all about where are you going? What does the future look like? How are we going to get there? Not in a rigid type of way, but in a way that's very purposeful. So they're always looking forward, mission-driven organisations, and they're always congruent with the values and the mission and the decisions that they make. So this is a question that you can ask in your board meetings. Is it about the future? Are we talking about things? Are we making decisions that are going to be purposeful about the future? And does everybody totally get what you're doing and where you're going? That's really important. The second thing that exceptional boards do really well is that they're results orientated. And again, you may say to me, well, of course we're interested in results. But I'd like to let you know that typically across the not-for-profit sector, we haven't been very good at being results orientated. We might have been very good at trying to collect, you know, how many clients come through the door or what kind of programs that we're doing. But the thing that we haven't been doing really well is thinking about what are the outcomes, what are the results and the impact of our programs and services. And even worse than that, sometimes we've actually been even ignoring our results. We've been so focused on our activities and our programs and thinking that we're doing a great job because we're busy, that we actually haven't been thinking about whether the activities and the programs that we do are creating any important impact. So we need to use the results to build support and use strategic decisions. We don't want to just collect data and information just for the sake of it. We've actually got to use our results to help us make meaningful decisions. Now, I want you to imagine if you were a results-orientated boat or ship, whichever you picked in your mind. If you were the captain of this boat, what type of information would you need to get that boat to where it needed to go? Just think for a moment, and you can even type it in if you like. You can type in what kind of information would you need to know where you're going. You'd need to know the distance that you've travelled. You'd need to know things like speed, your fuel level, your depth of water, because again, you'd want to make sure that the size of boat that you have, is it in the right depth? All of those types of things is what a crew and a captain needs, that information minute to minute really, to keep them on course, to avert danger, and to help you get to your destination safely. And it would be incredible for you to set sail in a boat without that type of information, because you would just think that would be too risky. So why in an organisation do we as boards and leaders think that we can just do our activities and we can just plan our programs and get along being busy without those indicators and giving ourselves minute-to-minute updates on how we're going so that we can correct, change or refresh our plans and our operations and the services that we provide? And of course, all of that data and information might be different depending on your organisation, but it's all critical. So the question that your board can ask yourself is, how are we performing? And if you're not asking this at every board meeting, then you're probably not achieving your best. You're probably not getting to where you need to be. So the third thing that exceptional boards do really well is they're intentional. And by this I mean that they're thoughtful and considerate and deliberate about everything that they do. So again, I want you to imagine your boat. And I want you to imagine that your crew wasn't intentional about what it was doing. What would happen to your boat? Have a think about that, and maybe write in some answers for me. What do you think would happen to the crew if they weren't being intentional about what they were doing? Well, of course, they would probably feel very confused quickly. I would expect there to be chaos, and there would probably be a lot of conflict. So what do intentional boards do then? Well, they make meetings matter. They think explicitly about the board's size, purpose, and structure. They make good contacts and they build relationships with strategic partners. They think about the meetings and the partners that they're going to and meeting and doing. And they foster a philanthropic culture, because we are in this business of fundraising and raising capital and raising supporters. And so we need to foster that culture throughout the whole organisation and the community and the people we work with. So these are the things that help boards be purposeful and deliberate. And if you are able to do this, I can assure you that you're going to get to your goals much quicker than other boards who are not intentional. Intentional boards also know that they must have three things, which is oversight, foresight, and insight. And they are all equally important. And you need to do this with everything that you're doing. And if you can't get this good balance, then it means that you're not doing something possibly as well as you need to be doing. So this is the question that your board needs to be asking. Are we asking the right questions? Bono has a great quote, and he says, "We thought that we had the answers, but it was the questions that we had wrong." And I just love that, because it reminds me that it's all about the questions that we ask if we're going to make good decisions and get good answers. So boards don't have to know everything. There's no way that a board can be the expert in everything, but they do need to know what the right questions are and who they've got to ask those questions to. Okay, number 4. The fourth thing that exceptional boards do really well is that they engage their board members fully, which means a balance between a really positive attitude and positive behaviour. Because you may have heard of the word engagement before and not being sure about what that really means. So it means that you don't just say that you love the organisation and you love the mission of the organisation, but you never turn up or you never participate in meetings. I mean, that wouldn't be congruent. You might have a fantastic attitude towards the organisation, but your behaviour doesn't really display that. And the other way round, you might have board members on your board that turn up diligently and they read all their reports and they come to all the meetings, but when they're there, they never join in discussions, they never contribute, they never ask questions, they never, they look bored, or they cause conflict. Unfortunately, there are board members that do that. They think that's their role, to come and cause problems for the board. Well, that isn't engagement, okay? Engagement is a really good balance between positive attitude and positive behaviour, really participating. And what do engaged boards look like? Well, they make meetings exciting and very important. People don't not want to come to meetings because they know how critical it is. They give meaningful work to board members. They don't just expect them to turn up and sit around a table for a couple of hours not really being an important contributor. And they allow board members to use their strengths and follow their interests. They really give them, exciting work to get involved in. So you've got to have a wide range of people who are on your board if your board is going to engage different types of people and allow them to have great attitudes towards the organisation, but also to participate. So the question that you can ask your board is, do board members feel that serving on the board is a highly rewarding experience? And this is what you can ask your board, because if not, then you clearly have to have a conversation with that member or that group, that group of people. It might be that they all don't have highly rewarding experiences, so you've got to have a good conversation about this. And I was just thinking about your boat here, that if you could imagine that your captain of your boat was downstairs sleeping when you as the crew were trying to sail the boat, how would it feel to you to have someone that was not a captain, that just didn't really have a great attitude about sailing your boat? What would happen to the morale of the crew? It would be disastrous, wouldn't it? Because you as the crew wouldn't feel very motivated if your captain wasn't very positive and didn't really participate. So if you're a board member, you've really got to role model the level of participation that you want everyone else to have. Number 5, the 5th thing that exceptional boards do really well is they revitalise themselves. And what I mean by this is that they are fresh and alert. They don't get stagnant or have the same people on the same board all the time doing the same old thing. They get new people, or they give new roles to each other, or they, invite new guest speakers, or they are continually revitalising themselves in terms of what they're doing and where they're wanting to go. Boards revitalise themselves in a lot of different ways, but here's a couple of them. They have a very well-defined process for recruitment, so they're always on the lookout for people that can join the board and add value to the board. They're always doing succession planning, so they don't wait until the AGM to think about who might take over as the secretary or the president. They're always thinking about who's going to be ready to take on the next step or can step into different positions. They're always really committed to a diverse and representative board, so they really enjoy the fact that different people have different backgrounds, experiences, ideas, and different things they can contribute to. And they continually develop their board members and provide leadership training to them. Again, it's a privileged role to be on a board, but board members need something for them too. So it is governing is a leadership role, and board members need to be constantly growing and developing themselves, because that is what is going to revitalise themselves personally, but also then be able to revitalise the board as a whole. So the question that your board needs to ask themselves is our board energised? Because if it's not, then you need to think about what are the strategies that you need to do to really energise the board. Because if your board is doing the same old thing year after year, then I pretty much guarantee that you're going to get the same results year after year as well. The 6th thing that exceptional boards do really well is that they have great partnership with senior management. Now, whether you have staff or senior volunteers, you've probably got people within your organisation that are doing the work, and then you've got your governing board, and you need to have very clear roles about who is doing what. Now, I know with smaller organisations or with startups, you can often find that the board does a lot of the work as well. But once you start getting staff, or you take you can't be doing everything, there needs to be a very clear role clarity about who's doing what. And then, very importantly, having a great partnership between the board and the senior management. If you can imagine a rowboat, if you were a team in a, I don't know, a dragon boat race or something, can you imagine if all of the people on that boat were rowing in different directions? I mean, that would be horrendous, wouldn't it? I mean, you wouldn't be going very fast, because when you're a team, you have to row in the same direction. You have to know where you're going, again, your direction, and you have to be communicating with each other really well and trusting each other as a team when you're doing something like dragon boat racing. So similar, your organisation needs to be working really well with your staff and your senior volunteers. So that clear role clarity, having respect and trust for each other, and making sure that the CEO is providing the board with the tools and information that they need to govern exceptionally, because they rely on senior management. And it's very hard for the board to do their job if they can't trust the CEO to give them the right information and in the right timing, you know, not keeping things from them, not making them feel that they're not giving them the information they need to make good decisions. And also there needs to be a lot of accountability between both the board and senior management. So both need to be held accountable. And that way they can resolve problems early if they're able to communicate well and, again, then do their jobs well. So this is the question that you need to ask yourselves. Do we have a trustful, balanced relationship, and do we understand each other's roles? So if your board and senior management can't answer this question positively, then you need to sit down and have a serious question about what are the barriers. Why is this not a good relationship, and how is that harming, I suppose, your organisation? Because if you can't get this relationship correct and positive, then it is going to have detrimental impact on your organisation. The seventh thing that exceptional boards do really well is that they build momentum. And what I mean by this is that they've got their engines going. And again, let's use this boat analogy. They've got their engines going. They know where they're going. They're working as a team. They're starting to row in the right, engine or rowing, in the same direction. And now they keep going. They've got their momentum going. They've got their engine of their boat cranked up to full speed. And they're not going to slow down, even though they're going to be flexible and they're going to watch the weather. And as I've talked about, you know, they're going to be watching all the indicators of how they're going. But they're really on fire and they're keeping this momentum going. Now, how do they do this? Well, they do it through a number of ways, but one of the things is by building the reputation of the brand. So what does your organisation stand for? What do people in the community know about your organisation and what it does? Are they really clear about how to get involved, about how to support you, about how to participate or volunteer? There shouldn't be any confusion to people about what it is that you do and what you stand for. And also they deliver tangible results because, again, they're not just running around doing lovely activities that I'm sure are very good, but they really understand what results and impact they're having on clients in the community, and then they're communicating that really well. Because when people hear about the results that you're having, then they want to know more. They say, oh, that's really interesting. Let's join their newsletter, or, excuse me. Or they say, you know, let's get involved, or there's an event, let's get along and participate. So the way that you can really build this momentum is communication and really being focused on being the best that you can possibly be, both internally and externally. There's no good just having a real focus on communicating to your donors if you're not doing really well communicating with your staff and your volunteers. So this is the way that you can gain great momentum. And then your clients and your funders and your donors will begin to trust you and your brand and what you can offer them, and you will have your momentum just won't stop then. You'll be able to just carry on even despite the environment that you're in. So the question that I would really encourage your board to ask themselves is anyone better off? And I wonder right now how much your board spends time on thinking about this question. You know, are we actually creating impact? What are we actually doing for our clients or our community? And is anyone better off? And then how do we communicate that to people that we want involved in our organisation? How is this helping us have a strategy towards building momentum? So I'd like to really encourage you to use this question to drive your momentum forward. And the eighth thing that exceptional boards do really well is that they promote continuous improvement. We really mustn't be afraid of change, because change is happening all around us whether we like it or not. And it's going to come at us, whether it's at policy level, at funding level, at community level. There's always changes that are going to happen. And I'm not convinced that we are doing the best that we can do, individually as organisations or as a sector. And so the only way that we are going to get better and be leaders in our community is to be focused on improving what we're doing all the time. So we mustn't be afraid of change. We must be humble and say, what can we learn? What can we get better at? What can we research? What research can we read? There's so much research being done out there. We don't have to do it all, but we have to know who is doing the research and what are other people doing, and be much more collaborative about change and the impact that we're making. So when we have a culture of continuous improvement with our organisations, what do you think that's going to do for your crew and your staff, or your staff and your volunteers? It's going to motivate them and drive them to look for better ways of being more effective and efficient with what they're doing and how they're running their services. You're going to encourage your staff and your volunteers to be thought leaders. You're going to encourage them to always be thinking about how to create better outcomes for the people that they're working with. And of course, what that means is that you'll be more adaptable when the sea gets a bit rough. You know, when the change is not always the change that we instigate, whether it's a funding or a policy change. If you've already got that culture of continuous improvement, it's not going to knock you as much. It's not going to upset you as much when you realise that change happens, but you're already got that momentum. You're already driving that change yourself. So how do we do that? There's lots of ways of continuously improving, obviously, but monitoring your performance, evaluating what you're doing, and just keeping really open-minded about what you're doing and how you're doing things. Never being comfortable, I suppose. I mean, that's what I try personally. I try to never be comfortable with what I'm doing, because then otherwise I would just get, stuck, possibly, and think that, I know it all, and I don't. Clearly I don't. And so imagine then what that would do for your organisation if you were open-minded about learning, and that your board was always striving to be the best that they could be by evaluating what they were doing. And obviously, it's really important that your board members are never afraid to speak up. They're never afraid to ask that previous question, are we doing enough? What outcomes are we achieving? Are we doing good enough? So this is the question then that you need to ask yourself. Is this the best that we can do? Because really excited and motivated people are always asking themselves this question. And it's not just a once-a-year question. I'm very much into this is a question that needs to be asked continually. So regularly people just leave it to a once a year annual appraisal or annual report that they do, and they think that that's okay. And I have a difference of opinion. I believe that this is a question that we need to be asking ourselves all the time, regularly, because this is what's going to be motivating us towards success. And again, you don't need to just ask yourself. You need to actually go and ask other people whether it's the best that you can do. So get out there and survey your clients. Get out there and survey your staff and your volunteers. Go and survey experts. Go and have experts come and talk to you. Go and have clients come and talk to you and talk about their experiences and ask them, is this the best that we can do? And that way you are going to be developing a culture of continuous improvement. Now, of course, many people do board reviews or board evaluations, and I just wanted to let you know that they don't have to be expensive and they don't have to take up a lot of your time. If your board doesn't do regular board evaluations, then there is a way that you can do this. And of course, I have been working with boards for many years and have developed a very simple online board survey that a lot of organisations do. And I just wanted to alert you to this, that you can go and check out all the details on zartconsultancy.com, because really, until you start doing evaluations, until your board isn't afraid of saying, yeah, how are we doing? Let's have a look at what we're doing and our performance, then it's very hard for them to then say to the staff and volunteers, well, now we want to know how you're performing. So let's role model boards, let's role model how to evaluate yourself and think about your own performance. So you can become an exceptional board very simply, and these 8 things are things that are very possible, they're realistic, they're ways that could make a massive difference to your organisation. And in closing, and I want you to think about, and I want you to write in some questions now. I can't actually see your questions, but I am going to answer them all personally when this webinar has finished, okay? So I'm committing to doing that now. So please don't not write in your questions. But I want, as you're writing in your questions, I want you to think about, is our ship sinking, or are we sailing well in the right direction? Is our captain working in partnership with the crew? Do we have that good partnership? Do we all have a common purpose? Are we all motivated and driven to do the best that we can do? Do we have a culture of continuous improvement? Are we always looking at our performance and asking ourselves, can we do better than this? Can we be more effective or more efficient? Are we asking ourselves, are we making a big impact, or the impact that we want to be? And remember, if you're a small organisation, do what you can do. Just be the best that you can be as a small organisation. Because if you do that, when you get to a bigger organisation, then you'll already have the structures and the culture that you need to create impact when you're a larger organisation. It doesn't matter what size of organisation you are right now. You should be running as efficiently as you need to imagine. In fact, this is a good one. I normally say to people, imagine as if you were the largest organisation in the world or the country. Would you run this organisation any differently? Because you shouldn't be. You should imagine that you are a large organisation right now. So those are some of the questions that I wanted to get you to think about today. And I hope you found that really helpful. And this is really, take this back to your board, have a conversation with them about these questions, and see if you can start putting some plans into place that will help you become an exceptional board. So thank you so much for attending today. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar. I'm sorry I can't answer any of your questions right now, but I might put some up on the website or something. I'll work out a way of making sure that you all get some answers to the questions. And I hope that you join us for our next webinar. Thanks very much, everybody, and see you next time.